Hey scholars, we're doing more Kevin Starr. He really is fun to read, and this is his chapter on Pasadena, and it's full of names. And don't want you. It's a flurry. Kevin Starr does this. He'll just throw out lots and lots of names, but he has a big themes going on, and these are lots of examples. But I love it. All these people he talks about. This is what makes history great. Is it talks about the big picture, but then it also talks about real people who wrote real books and did little things and went here and had these nice marriages and stuff like that. And so this is what just enjoy this but get this big picture of Pasadena because get a question about progressive culture on the final, and you need to be able to talk about it a little bit and mention Pasadena and what's going on there. So Pasadena here is, it started, as one of these cooperative, colonies of farmers. A lot of especially the Inland Empire was settled this way. And Nordhoff talked about these cooperatives. He talked about Anaheim and places like that. And grew as one of them. And then what he's going to do is he's going to talk about how there's these two different cultures. There's the Arroyo, which is the sort of more lower middle class, artistic, devoted scholar culture, and then the more wealthy, clubbish culture of Pasadena. But they're not super distinct. But that's what he's basically going to do. And so he starts out, and he talks about this joys of domestic life in Southern California, and that applies to both the Arroyo and Pasadena. He's quoting Loomis here, and we're going to talk more about Loomis. And, one of the major figures, along with Loomis and everybody, is this guy, Charles Frederick Holder. Just one of these wonderful guys who shows up interested in everything. He creates clubs, like the Hunt Club, and then does these, where they pretend to be English huntsmen and stuff. And then the Rose Bowl, and all sorts of gardening stuff. But he's also helped found the university that precedes Caltech. And then he also writes books on, oceanography and the islands out in Santa Catalina. And he's one of the founders of the Tuna Club, which is this fishing club on Santa Catalina that tries to fish with conservation minded. So, he's a great character, one of these great folk. And then here also are the Carrs. He mentions Ezra and his wife, Jan. And they create this Carmelita, which is this great, full of plants and beauty. And, this is this wonderful domestic life that is being created and he has this beautiful picture of women. There's a lot of feminine. This is that feminine progressivism that I was talking about. And then, of course, there's the housing. Green and Green are these amazing architects, and they do a lot. Just Google them. You'll see lots of wonderful stuff. Gamble House is their big, huge thing. That's it. It's the house in Doc's house in the movie Back to the Future. But it's just amazing. And Pasadena sought the emblematically genteel, and this is this New England English Anglo-Saxon culture. It has its downsides, and we'll talk about those downsides, but it's a beautiful thing. And Holder is, more about him and creating these clubs. And here's the Friday morning club, just like I was talking about in San Diego, having the Wednesday club. Point Loma's got the Thursday club. And you have all sorts of other sort of things going on. Educated people doing educated things, And there's these fun people, they're nudists. They're gonna, worshiping sunshine type of stuff. But it's not like the 1960s. It's a very genteel, educated, literary culture. And so then the sort of king and queen of it all are the Huntingtons. Edward Huntington, his wife Arabella. What's fun here is that, and I didn't know this until I had read this book, but Arabella didn't like, Southern California at all. And so the Huntington Library, especially its gardens, its artworks in the mansion and all that sort of stuff, is largely designed to bring sort of this European culture to that will satisfy his wife. And so that's fun. I think that's a lot of fun. And so you get this art collection that Arabella's got, which I think is a little over the top British, but go to the Huntington Library and see this stuff. Now, on the Arroyo below, you have a sort of, he's much more interested in the Arroyo because Arroyo is these really interesting people. They're interested in Mexican culture and Spanish past and Indian reservation or Indian missions and the missionaries. And they're very literary, all sorts of fun things about them. And the king down there is going to be this guy, Loomis. But George Wharton James is in the midst of this. Here's more about George Wharton James. He translated the history that one of the missionaries, Palu, wrote about all of California. And these two magazines here, Out West and The Land of Sunshine, are sort of key to this. Here's your vegetarian nudist types, but there's our main character is Charles Fletcher Loomis. And so he's just fascinating, and really fun. And here's more about Loomis, and what he wants to do. And apparently he and George Wharton James just couldn't get along. People who should get along and don't. That's really a sad. But then you see, there's that Loomis favored these women writers, and we get a lot of great women writers. He jumps into Robinson Jeffers, who's the great poet of California. Oh man, great stuff on rocks and granite and stuff like that. But he comes out of Southern California and then moves up to Carmel and becomes the sort of center of the Carmel life. But Loomis is the guy here that we're really focused on. And then it goes on about Loomis and his appreciation of all these women writers, especially Mary Austin. Mary Austin, her book, Land of Little Rain, is just a beautiful, beautiful book, about being up in the Owens Valley. And if you're on the Owens Valley, there's the Manzanar, which is the Japanese internment camp. And then you go into the town of Independence, which is right next to Manzanar. You can go up a little corner and you can find the house that Mary Austin lived in when she wrote Land of Little Rain. And, and so we go on. Here's more, about this life of a beautiful Southern California town. And this is painters and stuff he's talking about here. And then, and there's a lot, and there's great paintings there. Go to the Norton Simon Museum, go to places like that in Pasadena, and you'll see some really cool stuff. But here again, we're back to Loomis, and he is the sort of main figure, and then he carries it out with Loomis at the end. Loomis is just fascinating. There's a beautiful documentary of Loomis. Wow, I've overloaded you with a bunch of stuff already, but yeah. So Pasadena as actually it's Pasadena as a progressive culture, and is a great example of what we mean by these middle class, Anglo-Saxon ideals being brought in a family way, domestic way, to create these, not just a little house, but a whole town that is a cultural center. All right. Hey, take care of yourselves out there.